Blog Talk Radio.
A sunset, like any great melting, heats a vibrant fire that blends wounded parts together in a magic show that transforms. Reminds you of a past where the sunrise woke your senses with rays and flares. You realize In Between is a powerful social theater production that sent you through a powerful roller coaster journey, packed with friends, family, and strangers not so strange anymore. There, knowing soon comes the answers from above, an open sky of wisdom of those who came before, those that cheered you on from the future, a moon that lights your eyes, knowing a rock is near by keeping you company, then a falling star, a dream worth claiming, appreciating and making your own. Like anything, it's gone that fast, but you know you got it, and the celebration just might be a slumber away. Maybe, just maybe, the people dancing in your mind aren't that far away.
What's your budget?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Speaking Poorly radio show on Blog Talk Radio, brought to you by HomelessNewsNow.com. We're here talking today, interviewing Tom McNamara, the Sockman.
That's your absolute maximum?
Tom, are you
yes,
there?
You are. I am
Welcome
here.
to the show.
Well, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to it.
So what have you been up to?
Traveling around the United States and giving out socks to individuals, groups, anybody that I can find.
Awesome, and I want to thank you from a year or so ago when you came to Tucson for the Safe Park Forum on Homelessness, where you handed out over 400 socks to people who really needed it. I can tell you that here in Tucson, that just like in anywhere overseas, you're lucky to see a clean pair of socks maybe twice a month, if not more. The only difference now is there's a new group called Veterans on Patrol who is now helping to fill that void that the community needed, and the guy who runs that camp actually just loved the status of this whole program on Facebook. So I just wanted to let you know his name's Lou Sir Arthur. You should definitely reach out to him.
I will. Thank you very much. That's awesome.
So first off, you used to be a teacher, correct?
I taught for 30 years. And then I retired. Go ahead.
I got to tell you, thank you so much for your efforts as a teacher, because that's something we really need, and I know it's long hours for low pay, so thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, and I love doing it.
And I can tell you, by educating all those young minds, there's a strong possibility that in the next 30 years in the state you taught, we're probably not going to see a Donald Trump.
Maybe not. Oh, that was good. That was good.
So, thanks. So tell me, after you retired from being a teacher, how did you become this superhero called the Sockman?
Well, it started before I retired. There was a gentleman that stirred my mind. His name was Tom Costello, and he started an organization in Philadelphia called The Joy of Socks. And I read about it, and it kind of stirred with me, but I kind of let it go for about 2.5 years, and then he appeared on Oprah. So then I reached out to him, and we talked a couple times. And he really is he's doing a wonderful job in Philadelphia. But after I got off the phone, I started thinking, how can I do this and go around the United States and make people more aware rather than just staying in one location? People have told me, well, why don't you stay in one area? My goal is to give socks out, but my goal is to draw attention to the homeless, that they need so much, and just a pair of socks means the world to them. But if we all reached out and did something, we could really make a movement going.
You know what? I totally agree with that. And trust me, the difference between you and someone else, between me and someone else, or someone that we're going to hear about on the internet, a radio station, a TV station, is that one act of acting out what you think and making it happen.
And that's all it takes. I've started, and I have a bunch of people behind me that are in my, it's called the Sockman group, and all these people that have joined. They now kind of ride around with socks in the back seat of their car, and they have told me, it's fun because when they see someone, they're going up the ramp, they reach out, and they may not get to have a conversation, but they give them the socks, and they said that their face just lights up. And I said, that's exactly what happens every time.
And can you tell me, when you go out and talk to these people and you see someone down on their luck that could just use some generosity, that can use some love, that can just needs that feeling like they used to have when they were doing a lot better, and people they could have that get-together people, what's the emotion and just how the person presents themselves when you say, hey, you look like you could use the socks. I got a pair. Would you like them?
I have to tell you that it's been wonderful. When I approach people, most people don't talk to the homeless. They kind of walk to the other side of the street. They try and avoid them at all costs. On the other hand, I kind of look for them. And so when I walk over to them, I explain, who I am, and I said, I have a brand new pair of socks for you. If you are interested, I don't force them on anybody, but I've only had 2 people in 4.5 years say, I have enough socks. But everybody else, their face lights up, and I can't tell you how many times people have told me, you have no idea how important these are. We don't get to change our socks every day like most, and I've learned that we're called normies. So most normies change their socks every day and don't think about it, versus we don't get to change them but once in a while. Sometimes it might be months, and they are just ecstatic. In fact, some people immediately sit down on wherever they're at, take off their shoes, take off their socks, and put the new pair on. And, one guy looked at me and said, oh, you have no idea how heavenly this feels just to step on new socks.
Awesome. So tell me this. Part of what I've told people is that based on living out there with them with my activism and helping to start Safe Park and doing a lot of stuff, including working with a group that you know of here in Tucson named the Tucson Tribe. I definitely want to give them a shout-out. But 85% of clothing that's donated gets worn a few times and tossed. Do you think with how you and Mr. Costello have done this whole Sockman thing, do you think there's going to be that person out there that gets the idea of, hey, all these people out here need a laundromat?
Oh, that would be a dream come true if somewhere along the line I've heard of, people converting buses and putting showers and baths in them, which I think is awesome. But you're right. They want people, they say, well, the homeless just kind of do what they have to do, their business wherever. And I go, well, they have no place to go. If you gave them someplace, a washroom, a shower, or whatever, then, you might see a different person. But just because they don't have that, you don't want to look at them, you don't want to smell them, to me, it's just really degrading.
Well, I get what you're saying, because you know how we'll hear people say, well, why don't they get a job, or why don't they do this or do that? But if you don't have a shower, you don't have clean clothes, you don't have clean socks, you don't have a place to sleep, how are you going to be employable, and how do we make that standard without providing the basics that we need to get somebody there?
That's the part that I've been working on for a long time in my own head, because you're right. And that's what I try to explain to people when they say, I hear people will shout out, hey, get a job, you bums, da-da-da-da, or they say, they're all alcoholics and drug addicts. And I try to explain to them, they're human beings. If you were in their situation, maybe you might understand that they might have a drink periodically. They're not all alcoholics or drug addicts. Very few are, in fact, that I've run across. More are down on their luck, and they can't seem to get a handout. People don't want to give them a handout. They call that a handout. I don't know. I think it's a handout by helping the human race and saying, listen, let's just try and work together. And I met a guy just in Tucson, actually, and I was walking along the gully, and he was down there, and found out that he's 44 years old. He's never learned to read or write. So where is he going to go? And that's what he asked me. He looked at me and goes, I don't even know what street signs are. So when someone tells me, hey, go down to King Street and take a left, he goes, I don't even, that looking at those signs mean nothing to me. And that broke my heart. So, and there's stories like that all the time. Not that they're all, some people I've met some PhDs, I've met some doctors that are out there. It can happen to anyone. Most people are one check away from being out there, and they don't realize that.
And see, that's part of why it's like for the last few years I was looking for a way to find a way to communicate it. I was trying to find a way to talk to people, create a conversation. And part of this is how I got where I'm doing this now, because we got people out there like you. We got people out like the Tucson Tribe, or Melissa Haggard and Kim and all of those great folks, and needing to educate people. And I know you being an educator, that's a big part. But is there really like this big bill that has to go with it? Is there this big amount of money that has to go towards providing a solution?
Personally, I don't think so. I think there's a lot of simple ways that we could go about doing this, but because of the system that we have in the United States, I think they prefer to keep you homeless, and therefore it's a benefit to them, even though they say it's not. It really is, because they, arrest a lot of them, put them in jail, which is a moneymaker. I met a guy in one state, I won't mention any states or names, but I met a gentleman, and he was on a beach, and I asked him, how things were going, and he said, well, last night I was in another state. And I go, what do you mean? And he goes, well, they arrested me. They gave me a $50 fine. They knew I couldn't pay the fine. This morning I got up, and they said, pick any place you want to go. We're going to buy you a one-way ticket to that place, and then, now it's that state's problem. It's just amazing.
I believe they call that the Greyhound program.
I think they do. Yep.
So what you're telling me is either socially, politically, financially, or in some kind of way, part of the reason why we have a lot of issues going on in this country is because people are profiting and making and getting rich off of keeping other people down?
I believe so. That's my own personal opinion, and dealing with the people I've dealt with and looking at situation, it always comes down to follow the money. And if you follow the money, there's always someone above everybody that's making a profit on this. And someone's making a profit on the homeless. I mean, you look at other organizations, and I'm not knocking any of the organizations that people donate to, but a lot of those organizations, when they get closed, they charge. I mean, they get the clothes for free, and then they turn right around and charge people for the clothes. And I think that's a sin. I really do. And somebody's profiting from that. So, and it surely isn't the homeless.
Well, I can tell you from being part of that lifestyle and helping people like that is any money that the homeless do make, pretty much all of that money goes to enriching people of every other economic lifestyle.
Yes, I agree.
And so my question for you is, if you could get the opportunity to sit down with all the people running for office, and they had to sit at desks, and you get to educate them for 1 hour, to where you might have that unique teacher position where you have this incredible class that's supported by millions of people across the country. What's
that would be
the simple few things you would tell them?
Well, first of all, I'd like to sit down with them and explain to them that homelessness is a direct cause of a lot of situations. Our economics, a lot of people have become homeless because they can't afford to live anymore in a house, in an apartment. They can't pay for their medical costs, their pharmaceutical costs. So those people just, are out there. And then you have people that, downsizing, where you send a lot of our companies are sending everything overseas, which leaves a lot of people out of work. Okay, now where are they going to go? So I would like to address them and say the first thing we need to do is, if you want to get the homeless employed, we need to get them housing first. Because if you don't have a place that you have an address, you can't do anything. Secondly, that would make them feel comfortable. They would be able to say, wow, I can survive here. This is a house. I could, or it's got 4 walls. I could live here. That's what I liked about Safe Park when they started building those little homes for everybody. That was awesome. They gave them some type of comfort that they knew that at least they could call home. And I think once they get into that environment, then everything starts going better for them. They start thinking, okay, now I have a home. I have an address. I can start going places and applying. I can take a shower. I can eat a decent meal, go down, and even though they do go to the shelters and get great meals, they might even be able to put a few dollars together and sit at home and cook and actually enjoy that freedom of having some place to stay. And then from there, I would just address the fact that, I have a hard time with, and I know people have discussed this with me, I think the veterans are mistreated awfully in the country. They come back to nothing. I have met so many on the streets that are so frustrated. Some of them have just given up. They say, hey, I'd like to, go to the VA, but it takes me 6 months to get in. Well, they're not willing to wait 6 months. I mean, some of them are in dire straits, and they can't. So that would be my next area I would talk to them about is, we tell these people we are going to give you all this stuff for your service. And yet when they come back, all of that stuff is gone. It's like, well, what happened to it? I don't know. And, you see all these organizations getting together now that are trying to help the vets, which is awesome. But why do we have to have organizations that have to help the vets? The vets should come back and already be helped by us. But they're not. And that's why all these mainstream organizations are now going, okay, well, this is for disabled vets, this is for this is and I'm just frustrated in that extent. We should be able to umbrella all of these people. They are our heroes. They go out and protect us. They don't get paid enough. They put their lives on the line, and then they come back to what? Little to nothing. So those are the areas that I would address first. And it would be
don't
nice
you
to
think? Don't you think if we're going to have a conversation and say we're going to do everything to the people who sacrificed everything to protect us, and we're going to do everything for the people that we trained to do stuff that they weren't really raised to make decisions for, and we're going to help people transition back into a civilian life. We're going to help people move forward. If that's good for the people that protect us, is that not just as good as the people that they chose to protect?
Yes. Well, if you look at history, and I point this out to people, the Second World War, the people were put on ships and brought back to the United States. Well, that took roughly 6 months. You look at Vietnam and the wars that are going on now, they get in an airplane and they're back to civilian life within 24 to 48 hours. How do you take a person out of a war zone and drop them back and say, act normal now? That to me is just incredible. But we do it, and then we expect them to feel like, hey, I'm back and I can pick up where I left off. I don't think that's really true.
Do you think that the next big constitutional right, now that we have gay marriage legal and we have racial discrimination and laws that are gone now, and we got stuff of protecting people on age and gender and sexual orientation and disability and all these things, do you think the next group that needs to be protected is to say that housing is a constitutional right and that housing is a human right?
I would say more of a human right than a naturally constitutional right. I think it's the American dream, but I think that dream is quickly fading because I really believe that there is little to no middle class. There are the people in the upper class, and then there's people that are in the lower class. And within those classes, then you have, upper, lower class, middle, lower class. But the middle, that dream is gone. Like the guy I wrote about the other day, Tom. I mean, I felt sorry. He was a construction worker, and he looked at me and, he said, "Do you like pools?" And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Well, someday I'm going to build a house and have a pool." And then he, his eyes filled up with water, and a tear ran down his cheek. And I just felt for the guy because he was, in my age, and he's in his 60s, and that dream's gone for him. He likes to think about it, but he's living on Social Security, so he can't afford to get any place to stay, so he stays, outside, and he uses his money for what he can use it for, the medicines he needs, the food he needs. And to me, that's just a sin. A sin. He broke my heart.
And, I definitely get what you're saying, and it's like if I can figure out how to do anything, I become that guy who builds what's missing. I become that guy who finds a way to make it happen, even if it's writing things down, it's putting the idea out there, it's meeting with like-minded people. I find a way. And how do you think we develop more of that to where people have safe spaces? They have places where they can be creative and they can just prosper naturally with what we know we all are. Because if you think about it, we never leave school. The classroom just gets bigger, the playground becomes bigger, and the people running everything become multiplied.
That is very true. That is very true.
So, and go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't know. That's another thing that is in my head. I mean, there have been, from all the states I've been to, there are populations of people like yourself, myself, Tom Costello. There are people that are out there trying to do it, but, individually, it's so hard. And how do you get all of these ideas together to kind of say, okay, this is a grassroots deal. Let's get all of these people that are doing this. Like I met a girl that lives in Canada, and she started a sweatshirt. She started her own sweatshirt thing, like my sock thing, and every year she does sweatshirts and gives sweatshirts out to them. And I just thought that was awesome. But those are fabulous ideas. But that's one individual. You're one individual. I'm one individual. We got great ideas. What we need to do is start incorporating those ideas. One of the best places I've ever heard of is Justice Center in Phoenix, and it's for 55 and older for people that are homeless, but they bring everybody to them, Social Security, insurance. They have computers where they help people apply for jobs. So it's right there. They don't have to go down the street 10 blocks to go to Social Security and then go over another 40 blocks to go to someplace else to fill out another application. It all comes there. And I was very, very impressed. So if we can get more things like Justice Center, I think we could really get a good handle on it. But that's the only one that I've heard of so far. And I'm impressed, and I'd like to see. Go ahead.
That's what I'm trying to do with my homelessnewsnow.com is get everybody that is like this and put it all in one center and get all the activists, everybody, putting their stuff one place. And then once we get that, we can put that out. But I just want to let you know that our broadcast is coming to an end, but we'll keep you on. Anybody who wants to see the full show can go on to blogtalkradio.com/homelessnewsnow and can get the rest of the conversation.
Well, thank you very, very much. I've enjoyed this thoroughly, and I hope it helps in any way.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to continue telling people about what you're doing. It's going to motivate them because when people see good stuff, it's like I always say, you do an act of kindness, it becomes a drop that just creates a ripple that can't stop.
You are correct.
And so definitely tell people about what I'm trying to do with Homeless News Now so we can do this. And at some point, we get enough information to where we can and put it all in one place, build a big documentation of it, and put it in the right hands.
That would be the ultimate goal, and that would be fabulous. And I agree. I love your program, the things you do. I like what you stand up for. You speak your mind, and I think that's fabulous. and I have shared your site with a lot of people tonight, hoping that people would pay attention and start listening, because it would be awesome to have more and more people realize that there are people out there fighting for their homelessness and other people's rights.
And so tell me this. Where's your next few steps on the road that you're on?
Well, tonight I'm actually, I knew you were going to ask me that. I am in Death Valley in a small little town called Stovepipe Wells. And I'm just kind of working this is part of what I like to do. I like to go to smaller towns and try and find the homeless. There was a ton of homeless in Kingman. And I work my way up to these smaller towns and find people, because I think the bigger towns do have a lot of resources. The smaller towns, the resources aren't that big. So I try and find individuals or, groups of people that are living on the street and talk to them and give them their socks. But it's not about just the socks. I actually like to have conversations with them. In fact, one guy in Silver City looked at me after we talked for about a half hour, and he thanked me and hugged me, and he said, "You're the only human contact that I'm actually going to have today." And I found that just disheartening to know that a human being, any of us, we all need love, we all need to be hugged, we all need to have conversation, and here's a guy just thanking me for having a conversation, knowing that after this, nobody's going to stop and talk to me. I look too disheveled, and nobody wants to, they just want to walk by me and look at me and go, "Oh, get a job, buddy." Oh.
And, one of the things I've always done when I've gone to an interview and I was on the streets, part of what I always told people is they would say, "Well, because you're dirty, because you don't have the right clothes, because you don't know where you're going to be sleeping tonight, you don't live in this area, I can't hire you." And it's like, well, giving me employment and giving me that income, that's what's going to change that whole situation. Sometimes it's not, "Hey, go get a job." It's because I've heard this from friends who moved away from Arizona. Arizona, they just couldn't get anything, because part of the whole thing that I've seen is you tell someone that you're looking for a job, they tell you good luck. Whereas these guys have moved out of state and they told someone, "Hey, I just moved here from Arizona. I'm on the streets. I moved away from there hoping I go somewhere else to change my circumstance. I'm looking for work." And the person pulled out their phone and said, "You know what? If you want to work, let me call some people and see if they got something for you, if they can offer you something, even if it's for the day."
Right.
And I think that's where we could possibly change that conversation. What do you think?
I agree. I think if a few people, there are organizations or people that have hired the homeless, and they find out that these people do want to work, and they're hard workers. So it would be nice if people that were walking down the street that, knew of a job, owned a company, and said, "Hey, I could hire one or two of these guys and have them come in 1 or 2 days a week, get some money, and then see how they work out." But just don't write them off as if, they're not even there. They're not human. They don't have any abilities. They have tons of abilities. You just have to give them the opportunity.
You know what? And I agree with you. And I think it's like people say, every demographic kind of has its bad apples. It's people who've made bad choices, made mistakes, and that those are the people that most of us try to demonize rather than actually trying to see what the issue is and see how we can educate and how we can try to help. And in every demographic, there's people who are the stars that are shining in dark areas. They're the people that just bring a light to and energy to everyone around them. There's people, I think everybody has a skill. And of course, because this is a long conversation, and I know you like the tough questions.
Yes.
If you could pick 3 colors, what 3 colors would you pick?
As in red, green, and yellow?
Yeah.
Okay,
so,
red, green, and yellow.
All right, red, green, and yellow. So tell me this, if we changed the conversation to where instead of we replaced homeless with one of those 3 colors, who do you think wants to have the conversation?
I think a lot more people would have a conversation about that versus, when the homeless, because that word just is a derogatory word, and that conjures up all sorts of bad images. And that's why Michelle Lewis, and I like that she says, I don't call them homeless, they're houseless. They're not homeless. The world's their home, but they're houseless. And I like that word. That's a whole lot better than homeless. So, if we could call it a color, that would be fine. My bottom line is let's not worry about what the names are. Like when I talk special education, why are all these people spending all this millions of dollars to put every child into a special category? Okay, they're special. Let's leave it at that. Let's just work with the skills that they have. We don't have to give them a label.
And see, I agree with that, and I think people are human, and I think we should call ourselves human, and that we're social creatures, that we're creative creatures, and if we're allowed to be exactly that, that's when we all shine. And I think part of it is some people don't know what their skill is, but I think everybody has a skill, or at least they have the strengths to where if they learned a skill, they could succeed.
Yes,
and
I agree.
So
and I think, go ahead.
How do we talk to the powers at be on getting something like that set up? Because you know how we have in school, we have people take tests and we measure what their strengths are and we help them where they're not as strong, and we try to advance them in places where they're succeeding, and we try to do little things like chess clubs and music and theater and all these things, just so that brain connections are made, so that later on you can analyze stuff and you can have those critical thinking skills. Why don't we have something like, how do we have something like that put in place?
Well, I think a lot of people don't realize that the resources, the libraries throughout the country are the greatest resources in the world for our homeless. They are, they have poetry classes. They have all these types of classes that you can sign up for free. The problem is the moment a homeless person walks in, then everybody else kind of shuts down. But again, I think libraries do a great job. They let them stay there. They let them look up things. And if they would open the door for them in a lot of areas, they do have chess clubs there. They do have poetry. They have writing. They have all these type of skill levels. But again, our homeless are, one, not aware of it, and two, when you're living 8 miles away from the library, that's a pretty good walk to get there. And I'm not justifying that they shouldn't walk. I'm just saying that, I just wish that people would know that the libraries, to me, do an excellent job.
You know what? And I agree with you there. And, libraries are such a great place. I swear that they're a black hole of information.
And they are.
And where they are limited, there's a computer there with this really cool thing called Google that has everything that they don't.
Right. All the information is out there. You can.
You know how with whenever someone has a bad day, or we see they're having a bad day, or we know something's tough, we go out of our way to show them that kinder, gentler piece of us so that they make it through. What happens when we show that to a complete stranger?
There's a lot of reactions depending upon, how they approach it. I think a lot of people are taken back because I talked to a buddy of mine about this. The big cities, I try and say hi to people, or I do say hi to people. I don't walk by people. I say hi and I give them a smile. And, they're shocked that someone would take the time to say hi or open a door. Or so in a lot of ways, people are afraid because we tell them to be afraid. The news reports say, yeah, you better be afraid. Lock yourself in your house. Make sure that you are safe. And so we've lost all that communication between our neighbors, between our kids. Everything's got to be done in a group now because we're scared to death to do anything. Well, I don't know.
Would you say that part of it is having the bravery to leave our comfort zone and to meet our fear?
Yes. Yes, or go back to, I was born in the 50s and 60s, so to me that was the best time because people talk to each other. They walk out into the street and have a conversation, your neighbors, your kids. But today everybody's so focused on, their cell phone, themselves, or money that they don't have time for other people or things to get involved. And they're like, oh, I can't do that. I got to get this. You look at the growth of the stores today that deliver groceries to your house because you're too busy to get to the store to actually do it yourself. To me, that's a sad statement.